Hi, everyone. Welcome to Level Up with Shari Wilson. Today, I wanted to talk to some young people. Last weekend, we all went out to the NAACP March protest, and I met a group of young adults. And when I saw them, my husband walked up to them, and was talking to them, and I mean, it just warmed my heart to see so many young people out there standing up and fighting back and saying that they had enough. And so I asked them, can they come on to Level Up with Shari Wilson and have a conversation with us? So I'm just excited for them to share with you what this movement means to them. And kind of share their stories. So let me go ahead and bring them in. First, I'm going to bring in Gigi. Hi, Gigi.
Hey guys, hello. Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jennifer G, is known as Gigi. I am a mixed chick from Sacramento. My father is 100% Asian and my mom is 100% Spanish. And I grew up half in Sacramento and half in Texas. So I really do think that helped kind of mold me from seeing two different lifestyles and whatnot, because the South is a lot different than what we see here in California.
Yeah. Well, welcome. I can't wait to get in this a little bit more and talk to you. Let me bring in Wesley.
Hi,
Wesley.
how are you?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Introduce yourself.
So my name is Wesley Thomas. I am 20 years old. I currently live in San Francisco, but I grew up, born and raised in Elk Grove, stayed there for 17 years of my life, and then I left. So yeah, that's my background.
Awesome. And Wesley is out here doing some big things, you all. So I'm excited. I can't wait for her to kind of share a little bit more. Ryan, welcome, Ryan.
How you doing?
Good. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Ryan. I'm a lyricist in Sacramento. I lived in Auburn, California till I was 12, and then spent most of my teenage years in upstate New York, and then moved back to Auburn at the end of high school. So I also kind of, like Gigi was saying, I kind of have seen perspectives across the country a little bit. So I'm very, very happy to be on here, though, and thank you for having me, Shari.
Yeah, I can't wait for you guys to share those different perspectives as well. And now we have Tasia and Alex. Where are they? Are they there? They're coming, you guys. Tasia? Okay, it's okay. They'll be on. It was here. There they go. Okay, something's happening, but we'll bring them on. So listen, you guys, what I wanted to talk to you guys about was, what does this movement mean to you all? I know we talked shortly, but I know this time around, I mean, I've been through so many different protests. Hold on one second, you guys. Let's try to figure out what this noise is. Okay. I've been through so many different protests. Like, we always hear about somebody dying and we get radical and we want to go out there and we want to march the streets, and then something dies off, right? What makes this different? I just see it's different now. I see so many more young people out. I see so many different races out right now. Why do you guys think this time is different, Ryan?
Well, for one, half the world is in their apartments due to the COVID-19. We have, so I mean, for me, once I saw that there were protests happening, I'm not at work anymore, and it was something that at previous times I wanted to go to a protest at certain times maybe, but I also didn't want to get fired from my job for just not showing up. There's none of that anymore. So for one, everyone had literally nothing better to do, because that's, I honestly think I wish I felt more comfortable just always being able to, ditch work and go to a protest or do, but that, and I think people are actually just getting sick and tired of seeing the same cycle repeated over and over again. I mean, I think I've been hearing the people say like all lives matter for about 10 years now, at least. Since I was in college, I've been hearing that retort. So I think it's a sort of a perfect storm of people getting finally just fed up enough to just be like, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to just go to the streets and yell about it maybe. But it's also, I think the COVID really enabled people to go out and share their voice in the streets.
And also sit down and watch what's happening. You can't run. You can't say, "Oh, I didn't know about that," or "Oh, I didn't know that was happening." You had no choice. You had no choice. We have Tasia and Alex in. Hey,
how you guys doing?
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Alec. I'm actually Ryan's brother. We grew up together in an evangelical background. We were homeschooled both for the majority of our high school years. And so we grew up in a pretty sheltered environment. And so it's really been in the last 5 to 7 years that we've kind of come into some new beliefs and stuff and figured out a little more what we believe. And that's kind of led us to this podcast today.
Yeah. Awesome. We're going to get into that. What's different? What did you believe before and what do you believe now? And what happened? What's different? So I want to touch that. Hey, Tasia, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Tasia. I'm 24. I live in Sacramento. I was actually born here, and then I moved to a pretty small town in Mendocino County, which is in actual Northern California. Pretty small town, pretty small graduating class. I graduated from a class of about 99. Of that class, I was probably 4 of the colored Black kids, so definitely grew up in a town where it was I didn't see people that looked like me, and I was definitely the Black girl in town. So really different kind of juxtaposition between how I grew up and the things that I saw and the people that I saw compared to even just moving here 7 years ago and kind of reintegrating myself back into the Sacramento area. I always missed it growing up, but I think after I went to high school and graduated and did that whole thing, I had more of a newfound respect for Sacramento and just kind of the cultures and the people that you see here and the opportunities that you have for sure.
Yeah. Can you share the story? It was Ryan's birthday, right?
Alex's birthday. Yeah.
Sorry.
It was
Alex's birthday. And what you guys was going to do something. Go ahead and share that story.
So his birthday was actually just this last Monday on the 8th. 27. So big number, pretty big number. We were going to do a little luau party. We had it all planned out. But probably 2 or 3 weeks before the whole party was planned and everything, we saw the increase of protests and just kind of people speaking out against the injustice and things that they've seen. And they actually had the NAACP protest scheduled for the day that we had his party scheduled. So as it got closer, Alec was just feeling more and more kind of uneasy, a little bit probably guilty about, just having a day to celebrate himself and just kind of focus on himself. So he actually just let everybody know that, where he was going to be that day and that if you wanted to see him that day instead of partying and, celebrating, you can meet him up at the NAACP protest. And that's actually where we saw you.
And, I thought that was pretty dope. When you guys shared that story, that is so just selfless. Like, it's not about me at this time. I know it's my birthday, but it's a let's be part of that. So Alex, that was pretty dope. And so I admit, hats off.
That honestly, that's been noticed that a couple times recently where I've had to really stop myself and be like, this is not about you, dude. Like, you are here for support. You are here for allyship, but this is not about you. Take that background role, just find the place where you can fit and just help the cause.
Yeah. And, and I think once we take ourselves out of it, I think that we would be in such a better place.
Yes.
It's not about us. It's about the bigger picture. It's about the bigger cause. It's about that man over there. It's about that woman over there. I think that's the first step in change. That's how we really, truly change the world. I'm hearing that echo again. You guys, I'm not sure where is it coming from.
Oh, there. No.
It's gone. So listen, I heard that Brian, you mentioned that you hear people all the time speak about all lives matter. What does that mean? Like, when you hear that, to me, it frustrates me because no matter how much you try to explain to somebody, we're not saying that only Black lives matter. What we're saying is all lives matter, right? Well, no, I'm sorry. We're not saying all lives don't matter, but what we're saying is Black lives matter too. And it's been shown that it doesn't matter, especially when it comes down to police and African American being pulled over. Can you touch on that a little bit more?
Definitely. The mic's cutting out a little bit, but I believe you asked me to explain what I hear when I hear people say all lives matter. Correct?
Yes, yes.
All right. The best analogy I ever heard was have you ever heard the dinner table analogy around that? Where if you imagine like a whole table of people and everybody gets given food and then one person doesn't get given food. And then that person says, to whoever served the food, hey, I deserve food. And then that person looks at them and goes, well, duh, everyone deserves food. And then continues to not give them the food that they're requesting for. And so I think all lives matter is so offensive because, and it's crazy this has to be explained, like Black Lives Matter is like, it's such like it's like a just being like, hey, it's not even like, hey, give us equality even. It's just like, hey, just admit we matter. And then so to have the retort be, oh, all lives matter, it's really insulting on so many levels. And it's honestly it sucks that I feel compelled to explain this. I'm glad you asked, because I feel like I grew up with a lot of white people who I wouldn't be surprised if I heard that come out of their mouth, and that's crazy to me, but it's really just a really insulting retort, to make when people say Black Lives Matter,
Yeah. Wesley, can you share a little bit about how I know you guys had like a little pamphlet you guys was passing out. Explain what that means to you when you hear, and what do you say when people say that to you? All lives matter, not just Black lives.
Right. I, like Ryan said, I think it's really insulting to bring that to anyone. Especially, I feel like it's something that only comes out when Black Lives Matter is said. It's something that purely only comes out then. You don't see it when we're talking about the kids who are in cages like near the border. We don't hear those things. It's only when, and people tend to forget that. So when I hear that, I just try to explain to people, first of all, I'm just very big on not wasting my breath on people who aren't going to get it. It's one of those things where it's like, yes, we need to have those dialogues, but also if somebody's just so stuck in their beliefs, and there has to be like a willingness to be open to have that conversation. because I've done it for years. I've been doing this since I was a kid, having to explain to people, because growing up in Elk Grove, I was treated differently. Before it became super duper diverse, it was not as diverse, and I was treated differently by my white counterparts. So I've had to fight and constantly explain to people. And I think that of recently, when I hear somebody say all lives matter, I tend not to go back and forth with those people, because at the end of the day, I know that somebody can probably communicate that better who looks like them, where it's like, of course, all lives matter. We're not saying that. It's just the basic decency of you acknowledging and knowing that Black lives matter as well. It's not anti-whiteness. It's not, we're just saying we want to be heard too. We want to matter too. And that's pretty much it, you know, and you can throw, you know, all the analogies out, and it's just unfortunate because a lot of people still don't understand, no matter how many, you know, examples you put there. Yeah.
Right. Gigi, go ahead and hit on that question. The same thing. How do you feel? And what do you say when you hear that?
I can't hear what you're saying.
Can you hear now?
Kind of. Am I answering the Black Lives All Lives Matter question?
Yes. Yes.
So pretty much my stance on when people say all lives matter is, I don't think they're getting the point on the whole Black Lives Matter right now. And it's like, yes, all lives matter, but right now it's for Black people's justice, because a white man would have never got a knee to the neck. And in Breonna Taylor's case, no one would have busted open a white person's home and shot them in their own sleep. So right now, I think that it's very easy for people to say all lives matter, because they're not getting the point of what's going on right now.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I let me just go to Tasia, and I'm not sure what's going on here, you guys. Bear with me.
That's okay. We're working it.
I'm like, what is happening? This never happened before. I don't know where this noise is coming from. But Tasia, Alex, what do you guys think when you guys hear that?
I think it's just when you start looking, like something I've been doing in my journal, I've been trying to do it every day, is just look up a Black life who's been lost to police brutality and just read their story. And then I've been writing it in my journal under the name George Floyd. And I'm starting to get a pretty big list, of course. And it's just, God, it's becoming so painfully aware to me, just that Black lives don't matter the same as other lives in the US. A lot of lives don't matter the same as white lives in the US. And so when people say that, to me, what I hear is white people saying that, and saying that they don't want other people to matter the same as them. And that's really hard for me when I look around and, you know, I have a half Black girlfriend and I have a Black little sister. I'm like, why don't they matter the same? They're the same as me. They talk to me. They have senses of humor. They have a sense of personality. They're phenomenal people. What's different about them? And so when I hear all lives matter, I'm like, yeah, of course all lives matter. That's a moot point. That's something separate entirely. This is about the people that don't matter right now. So for me, I just try and keep it focused on showing people the inequalities that Black people have faced. And that is why the Black people are having to, you know, say, of course, the obvious thing, which is that they matter. But it's gotten to the point where we really do have to point out and bring that to the surface.
Yeah, I like what you just said. Yeah, we already know, you know, those lives matter, but it's about the lives that is blatantly shown that it don't matter, you know?
Over and over again.
And I think that's key. Tasia, go ahead and tell me, what do you say when you hear that?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and have to agree with Ryan and Wesley, you know, pretty much everybody, I think, along the lines of, you know, being Black. I would have to say that it's offensive. It hurts hearing that. But one thing that I've tried to do lately is just kind of find like more room for acceptance and understanding. And one thing that I've kind of like come to realize is that those people, you know, it's almost like an instance where, you know, they're not involved. It's almost like, you know, they're like, well, you know, what about people who have like breast cancer and stuff like that? It's like they need something to compare it to almost because they don't get like why we're saying it. Obviously, you know, we're saying it because Black Lives Matter just as much as all these other lives. Like nobody said that other people's lives don't matter. Like, you know, that's beside the point right now. I think like one thing that's really important to keep in mind if you are one of those people that says, you know, all lives matter, you know, that's fine. That's great that you think that. But until you also include Black people on that list, I don't really think that that's like an all-encompassing statement to say all lives matter, because if you can sit there and, you know, blindly turn your eye to a whole marginalized group of people that have been repressed for years and, you know, kind of just been told to just deal with what you've been given, you know, until you're on the same page with those people and understand where they're coming from and, you know, the pain and the struggles that they've been through, I don't really think that you can even say all lives matter, because if you're saying all lives matter, that would also include Black people, which at this point aren't included.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I try to compare it to, and I just thought about this the other day because I was on Facebook and I heard somebody say, well, all lives matter. And I said, well, just imagine it like I'm always trying to figure out a way to explain it, right? And so I try to explain it in a way to I'm going to the emergency room, right? And Wesley, you're going to the emergency room too. You're already there, but you're there for a migraine and maybe a cold of the flu. And I just came in and I just had a stroke and a heart attack. You've been waiting in the waiting room. I come in, I'm being seen right away, right? Well, what would you say? Well, Wesley, wait, hold up. My life matters too. But you're sitting there with this, not the same symptoms. I'm urgent, like my need is urgent. My need needs to have attention now. And I think that's how I try to explain it, is that everybody in this emergency room, the doctors, the nurses know everybody's life matter, but we need to pay attention to the ones that's endangered right now, right? And evidently, if they don't take me in, then I can die. I can die. And so what we're asking is, take us in. Let's fix this issue, because we're tired of dying. I'm tired of looking on the news and seeing another person dead, and then what happens is we just leave it alone. Like Sandra Bland, like we still should be yelling her name. We still should be yelling her name. We still need to be yelling all the Black people that died. and we're not just saying that, you know, oh, they died, that, you know, that's just, I hear this all the time. Well, white cops kill white people too. I just heard somebody say this on Facebook, and I'm like, okay, that was wrong. That family needs justice too. It's wrong, especially if it wasn't right. But it's so many different times where we see African Americans being pulled over and being abused just based off their color. Not because we was acting crazy, not because we was, you know, we hit the officer. I mean, George did everything that he was supposed to do correctly. He did everything right, and he still ended up dead. We can't not ignore that the reason why he ended up dead was because of the color of his skin. The reason why they treated him like that was because the color of his skin. So this takes me to Wesley. Wesley, when you're doing your I know you're doing the protest, but you guys have a list of things you're asking what you're asking for change about. Like, what are you asking? What are you requesting? What are you trying to bring attention to?
Right.
I want you to share that.
So Elk Grove PD's budget, they take up 67% of the budget of the city of Elk Grove. The community only gets 1% as of yesterday, the day before, I was at the council meeting and I spoke, and they still passed this budget. So originally it was 63 and they now bumped it up to 67, and community services were 2% and they actually bumped it down to 1%. So now community service will get 391,000 versus 5 million that the police get. So to me, that just does not sit right. I think that we need to be, we are demanding a real allocation of those funds back into the community. We think that the community, especially within Elk Grove, I know that we are planning to establish a Black organization in Elk Grove, and we want money to go back into the communities to help. Even the south side of Elk Grove looks entirely different than the east side of Elk Grove. So we want to make sure that educationally wise, all those students are being represented. They get the same resources as someone who goes to Cosumnes Oaks, the after school programs. So we're calling just for a reallocation of those funds back into the community. And then we're also calling for the accountability for the Black lives lost and permanently altered due to police violence and police brutality. Elk Grove's police report card is actually a D. It's a D. It's almost an F. So clearly there's things that need to be done there. And somehow we have to, the police have to work with the community and figure out how they can help to raise that grade, because there's no way they should be failing if they're for the community and for the people, and willing to have those dialogues with the people. So that's what we're calling for ultimately, is the reallocation of funds and accountability.
Wow. I think that's pretty dope. How old are you, Wesley?
20.
20.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what? I stand behind you in this movement, and I'm so proud of you. Because we're not just out here just raising our banners saying Black Lives Matter, but we're actually putting work behind it. We're saying this is what we need. This is the changes that we need. Right? We need you guys to look at this. Look at that. Where can they find if other people in other cities? Where can they find their report card at?
So I believe I have to pull up the website, but I believe it's like policescoreboard.org. PoliceScoreboard.org. And in Elk Grove, Black people are 3.5 times more likely than a white person to get pulled over or be brutalized in Elk Grove alone. So that says a lot. Yeah.
And
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say PoliceScoreboard.org.
PoliceScoreboard.org.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys, I think that everybody needs to check their police score and kind of see what's going on. We need to bring light to what's going on. And I think the average citizen don't even know, especially in Elk Grove, that we rate a D. I mean, I hear all the time, well, keep this protest out of Elk Grove. Elk Grove is good. We don't have those issues like Sacramento. Leave it alone. But what Elk Grove likes to do is cover it up.
On the rug, yeah.
They like to cover it up. They like to put Elk Grove against hate, and they just don't want to deal with the real issues. And I think it's important for us to bring light that no, we still have some issues out here in Elk Grove, and we need to address it, and we need to fix it. Gigi, what do you think? Hey, welcome back.
Hey.
What do you think is some things that we need to change in Sacramento? Just as regarding the police, like, what do you guys want to see different? This is for all you guys. You guys can chime in when you guys want to. But what do you guys want to see different?
Differently, I would feel like the police, I think that they should be a little bit more open-minded with when they're dealing with different people, because I do think that the cops treat people differently versus like if they came out and there was domestic violence with a white family, they would be like, okay, calm this down, versus if the cops went to a house with domestic violence with Black people, they would probably take whoever started it to jail or cause some kind of ruckus. I think that the cops are very close-minded, and I think that I don't think that's okay.
Yeah. I think it's important to also recognize that their training actually tells them to to handle Latinx people and Black people differently. The training is very different. So my girlfriend's friend, she at the time was her friend. She actually works in the police force. And she would like explain to them like how they had them training. And so they are trained to target Latinx folks and Black people. So how they handle them is much more aggressive than how they would handle someone who was not Black or Latinx.
Yeah.
So those are also important things to know, that they're
It's very good to know.
they're told to, you know, do this. They're trained them. So yeah.
And where did you find that information at?
So
You all here saying, where did you find that at?
yeah, that's like from a police officer.
That's from a police officer.
Police officer. So
Straight from the horses.
in San Diego. She's from San Diego. So that's from a police officer in San Diego. So yeah, I feel like when it comes from the horse's mouth, like I don't see there's, you know, but
Yeah, I just saw an article on Facebook, and it was I forgot where it was at. It was somewhere, but it was a police chief, and he actually he used to be a police chief, and he spoke out, and he said that he was pulled over and racially profiled by his own officers.
right.
So he wrote an article about it, and I was just reading it this morning. But Ryan, looked like you want to say something.
There we go. I don't honestly. I'm in the process of trying to educate myself more on the justice system, the police system right now, and really to listen, because I don't know it very well. I don't know a lot about that. I dropped out of college to pursue songwriting, so now I'm thinking about going back to school to get smart. But I think mainly that's maybe what like a lot of us need to do, is if you're like me and you don't know, like I it's funny you said that, because I really I don't have a lot to add on that, because I need to become more educated. But from what I see, it seems like the police are doing too many jobs too. It seems like they you know, that when I've been looking online at the list of all the things that they have to do, it's like, okay, maybe if they had more specific training, effective training on one thing, that just seems to make common sense to me. That their jobs should maybe be split out by on a wider range, and I think they should have more intense training probably than they do. But I don't know a ton about it, so I'm trying to educate myself.
I agree with that. I think I shared not too long ago with another group of people that, you know, to be an officer, you only have to go to the academy for 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months. And you only have 30 hours of implicit bias training.
And do you need to have any type of degrees? Do you have this what?
No. You don't need to have a degree or anything. You can literally just go. And if you want to be a police officer, you can be, I want to be a police officer. And if they feel like you're fit, they do have like background checks from what I know, but obviously like those aren't working. So to like make sure people, you know, those aren't working. So yeah, so they have background checks. It only takes 6 months. I'm like, it takes long to become a lawyer. It takes long for me to get a realtor's license. Like
it's long for me to get your cosmetology license. Okay?
Yeah.
You need so many hours. You need so many hours to become a cosmetologist or a barber, but you only six months to become an officer. And I also think that these officers in the community that they're going to be working in, if you're going to be in an African American community or an Asian community, you have to get involved with their culture. You have to probably do some hours prior to you putting that badge on and paroling that area. You need to go in and volunteer in that area. You need to get to know these people. Who are they? Let me find out a little bit about their culture. I think it's kind of unfair that they take these officers and they put them right here in South Sac or, you know, in these Black communities, and then they're afraid of us. You know, they're afraid of any type of movement. And like you said, they're being taught this is how you deal with these type of people. You know, the first thing they do is grab for their gun or grab for their taser. I think they need to get more involved in the community so they won't be scared. You know, I think that should be a requirement. You know, if you're going to be working in South Sac, then maybe before you come down from El Dorado Hills, you need to spend 2 months volunteering in South Sac. You know what I'm saying? And so I personally think that would help. I don't know.
I think that would help as well.
I don't know. Listen, you guys, I'm just like you guys. And I just committed myself to having these conversations and letting people have their voice heard. And hopefully this can help with the change too. I think we got to keep talking about it. I don't think we can't let this go anymore. We can't go where we're protesting, and all of a sudden everything just dies down. That's what they're expecting. They're expecting us not to show up after 2 months.
Can I add on something, Sherry?
Yes.
I just want to say a big thing that I've been looking a lot at too, and a big thing that I feel like would be really important just for cops on the day-to-day, thinking more about what they're doing, is the accountability factor. You know, reading about Chauvin, the cop who murdered Floyd and everything, the fact of his past record. I mean, I heard there was a article I read on CNN that was talking about a past police chief, and he was like, if I had looked at Chauvin's, folder, and I had seen all the different instances, there was one for pretty much every year of his police career, an instance that they had written about where he'd been written up.
One per month for every year that he had worked for the force. And I think he worked there for like 14 years or something like that.
It's 14 to 17 years.
Right. Okay. You said he had a complaint every single month for every year that he's been there.
More or less, the total number of complaints that he had spread out across his whole career was like one per month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when a past police chief can look at that and be like, okay, there is clearly a pattern. I mean, if you had an employee at your cosmetology studio who was like that, you'd be like, no, this isn't working, And these are people who have people's lives in their hands every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where I look at it and I'm like, we need to be constantly, the mental health checks need to be a lot more. I mean, these cops are still coming back to their office at the end of the day, and they're writing handwritten reports or reports on the computer. Like, how is that still the way that we're doing this, So I think that there needs to be a lot more on the back end where we are really diving into what those police officers are doing on the streets and really making sure that actually that is really being seen by the public.
Yeah. I think you hit on something. You said mental health. Mental health.
Yes.
It's key. It's key. And we're not doing mental health checks. A lot of these officers are coming from the military too.
Right.
What type of mental health are they already experiencing from being wherever they are and then coming back? And now they're officers. Are they mentally sane? Are they mentally prepared? That's a good point. That's a good point. Gigi, can you add to that?
So I can't hear anything that Tasia and Raya are saying, so I can't exactly add to the conversation because I don't know what they're saying because my mic or something's not working. Something's not working.
That sucks. Well, they were just
everyone's nodding, and I'm like, what's going on?
Oh, I'm sorry. But they were just saying that it's a lot of other things that needs to happen as far as the officers, as far as mental health check. We need to make sure the mental state is right before they're coming into a force. It's just, we're talking about things that we know needs to change in order for us to really have true change in the coming future. So do you have anything to add with that? Like what other change do you feel that we need to be targeting to really get real change?
I would say mental health is a good thing. More learning would be a good thing. More things that we should change. Maybe come back to me. I'm still thinking on this.
Yeah. Wes, can you add anything?
Yeah, I think also in terms of like the accountability thing, we're expecting these cops to be responsible for holding one another responsible. And I feel like that's where it kind of gets difficult because it's like, okay, like you're my friend, like I'm gonna let some things slide. I'm not necessarily gonna say anything. You're somebody I've worked with for like the last 20 years and like we become really close, so I'm not gonna really say anything. So maybe there should be like and a young man named Xavier who actually held a protest on Wednesday. He talks about this often, but basically making like a coalition or like a group to kind of supervise the police in a sense. So that I think that's like an interesting idea, and yeah, just having somebody else maybe to hold because I know for a lot of people, the thought of abolishing the police is like something so radical and just like out of this world. But I think what people are saying when they're saying that is abolishing what the police force was built on, what the police force was, the values and the spirit of what the police was built on. Because if we're being honest, it rooted out of slave patrol. And protecting what they saw as property, which was people. So we have to acknowledge the roots and where that comes from and how that has maneuvered throughout history and how to this day it still holds the same values as it did back in the day. So we have to like definitely be aware of that when we have these sorts of institutions that were rooted in the foundation of racism and the foundation of what this country was built on. So I think it would be interesting to have somebody to kind of have like an oversight committee of the police. It was definitely something that I would have to do more research on, but I know that is an idea that some people are putting out there.
Yeah, it sounds like we really just need to restructure our police departments.
Yeah, well, we just need to restructure everything, if we're being honest. It's just like and I said this on Monday because I held a protest on Monday, but what the United States of America was built on was racism, genocide, and the backs of other people. And I think people feel are unwilling to acknowledge that basic fact. And because the system was designed to leave people out and it was designed not to include groups of people, it has been tainted through all the other tools used to aid in the oppression of people. That comes from education, that comes from language, that comes from the workforce. We have to attack that root, and we have to. And my mom and I talk about all the time, and I believe she said it on the show. But it's like when you have a house and your foundation is cracked, the house will crumble. You can't rebuild on it. You have to start over. You have to make sure that it's a solid foundation, and you have to rebuild from that foundation. You can't build on something that's cracked. So this idea of reforming is like we will fall back into these patterns because at the base of it, at the foundation of it, it's broken and it's tainted. Yeah, for how we how they designed it. It's functioning exactly how it was designed. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's thriving. But the injustice and that we see, it can no longer thrive, and it is broken in our eyes. So
that was good, Wes.
Thank you.
That was good, and it is true. The foundation is messed up, so it is. We got to remove everything and start back up. And right. I want to repeat a comment that I read, and I want you guys to kind of touch on this. She said, none of us here was slave masters. And she said, none of the white people living today were slave masters. None of the Black people here today was slaves. What is the issue? Stop using race as the excuse. Get over it. All lives matter. That right there, I wanted to just go in on her. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I know that none of us, you guys wasn't slave masters. And I know I wasn't a slave, but I am still being affected by the things that happened in the past, you know? So we can't just say, to me, we can't just say, get over it. You know, you can't just say, get over it. And how do we fix it? How do we truly fix it? When you guys hear that comment, after I read that, what do you guys think? What's the feelings that you get hearing that?
Shocked. I guess I'd take a little bit shocked. Not really like all that surprised, a little shocked. But I mean, maybe this is a bit dramatic, but I would say, you know, you can even take it to modern day workplaces, workforces. Say, for example, the modern day white CEO. You work for this man. You're a cog in the machine that is a whole that is. If you dropped dead tomorrow, they would have you replaced by that day. You know, it's like, even today, we are just modern day pawns to, you know, this bigger system, and we don't necessarily realize it. Like, I think that there's so many things even that, like, for example, because Black Lives Matter, Black lives are still being, you know, like, they're not business owners. And if they are, then their businesses aren't as booming as other businesses. It's like there's this deeply ingrained almost like thought that, you know, Black people can never be at the level of white people. Even if it's not that you have us in chains and you're forcing us to go, you know, pick cotton, the age-old thing that we see slaves doing, we are essentially a slave to this corporate system that we'll never be able to break into. We'll never have the same levels of like opportunity or even chance as our white counterparts who have years of money that their family set aside for them to create their own business or go to school. Or it's like, I think so many different institutions have been marginalized to the point where, you know, it's almost like if you're a Black college student, your only option is to get a sports degree if you're a male, because, you know, you're gonna or get a scholarship for like a sport. Like, you're only gonna go to college if you play football or basketball. Like, I think that there's just much larger stereotypes, stigmatisms, ideas, opinions about the Black community as a whole that are kind of like repressing us to a level of like, you know, you're just not as good as white people. You just never will be.
Yeah. Yeah. And then once you actually do achieve, you know, great things, or you achieve success, or whatever the case may be, they always minimize it to, oh, so are you a football player? Oh, are you, you know, I get that all the time. You know, I'm a successful business owner. I own a cosmetology, co-own a cosmetology college. I own 2 salons. I felt like, you know, I was determined, and I have my mom and I have my sister and I have my support system pushing me to be successful. But even in the way, it wasn't as easy. I had to go through so many different things to reach where I'm at today. You understand what I'm saying? I had to fight harder. I had to scream louder. I had to make myself known. I had to do different things than somebody who was white doing the same thing had to do. I had to be 10 times smarter. I had to think ahead. I just had to do more, right? So then when you finally reach the American dream, people was asking like, oh, so what team did your husband play for? Because we only could be successful if we're athletes, right? Or we have to be, is he a rapper? Oh, okay. You know, or once we say no to those things, oh, they're drug dealers. You know, and so I always have to prove, like, no, I went to Cal State Northridge. I opened up my first business. I have a salon out here. I always have to prove to people that that I'm legit, one, And I think that's the reason why my passion for people to really take control of their subconscious mind, because subconsciously, all the negative stuff that's poured into us, all the things that they say we cannot be, we have to be so strong in our minds where we just come at it different. We have to, because our minds, once people start telling you everything, if you're in this community, right, and everything that they say to you, even when you go to school, you're not going to be this, you're not going to be that, this is not for your type of people, your people never, you're only going to be in this little circle, and this is where you're going to be. You have to be really, really strong mentally to bust out of that bubble that they put you in. And a lot of people don't understand how to take control of their mental, their minds, and bust out of that bubble. You understand what I'm saying? And I always say that I was raised in a house with I have 4 brothers and sisters. I have one sister, 3 brothers, and we always raised by my mom and my dad, right? And I was poured into, not just in my home, but I always reached out of the box, and I always wanted to see different things. Later on in my childhood, but my sister, she stayed outside the neighborhood. She stayed, on the west side of Los Angeles. Well, me and my brothers, we kind of stayed in our environment, right? We never really got out of our environment. Our environment was every other corner. It was a liquor store, right? That wasn't an accident either, you guys. So we got to realize that sometimes our environment and what we see, we're always limited to that. So that's when I say we have to bust out of our minds. We got to bust out of our bubble and kind of see different things to really transform what our minds or our subconscious mind take in, take the things that we need and throw out the things we don't need to really be successful and achieve the things that we need. Because in the African-American community, they only put there what they want us to be. And if we never get out of that, then we end up being all that they want us to be and more. Does that make sense? So when they say that Black people shouldn't be this and Black people shouldn't be that, just remember, in our community, they are drilling that into us everywhere we go. Everywhere we go, they're drilling that into us. So it frustrates me when I hear people say, well, everybody have the same opportunities. Everybody have the same opportunities. You just gotta work harder. Well, how are you gonna work harder being in the environment that is designed for you to fail?
Right.
And that's why I'm always talking about mental. Take control of your subconscious mind. Watch what you allow to enter into that. Because I was that kid that I could have went that other way. Actually I did. It took my sister at 16 pulling me out of that. And I started seeing different things. I started seeing more than what I was, my hood that I came from. If that makes sense. I think it's going to a whole different.
No, it does. It really does.
No, absolutely.
I think that's a very important point that a lot of people that, maybe arguing other sides may not grasp. But, when you put it that way, that you said that there's a liquor store on every corner for a reason. It's the same reason that, they made cartoons that were stereotypical or, it's almost like they have to reach each target group to make them think a certain way. And it's exactly what you said. It's mental constraint. It's almost like, pigeonholing your mind to believe that it can only be one type of way. And if you're not that person, if you're a different group, also making you believe that those people can only be one type of way and only, be seen one type of way. So no, I definitely, your connection made sense.
Yeah. And we have to stop believing the lies that they tell us. We have to stop believing the lies that they tell us. So that's a whole different conversation, and that we need to touch on in the future. But I touched on that because you was talking about the different environments and that we come from, and how people just really pretty much stereotype us. Mm-hmm. And when people say, well, you can just do this or you can just do that. Go ahead, son. You can do this and you can do that. That's my son. It's really hard. It's really hard. It's really, 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 really hard. And it frustrates me when I hear people say, well, you made it. Well, it was freaking goddamn it. It was freaking hard. It was hard. I had to push through so many different things to make it, you know? And so it's not as easy for you to go to the hood and say, hey, you guys have the opportunity. You can make it if you want to make it. But then they go back home and they're stuck in these environments. That's why we really need to reform. We need to change our communities. We need to change so many different things, Wesley. I think you touched on that.
Yeah, like putting money back into these communities, and like, so people, you know, and I can recognize the privileges I have had, because I grew up in Elk Grove, and my parents, what they grew up in is entirely different from what I've had to grow up in. So I can recognize the privileges that I have had because I was in an environment where a lot of those opportunities are not afforded to people who look like me in other environments. So like the opportunity to have like theater, you know, I was surrounded by theater. I went to a school that had a program for theater, that had set programs. You know, we have up-to-date textbooks. We have all this stuff. And I was also just in an environment, you know, with my mom and my parents, like being very big on education, super big on me knowing what's going on, knowing my rights. And I grew up in a family I come from a family of activists. So so I was, you know, there were a lot of privileges I have had, and I am able to recognize that. And I want to be able to give back to the community and help those who have not had those privileges, allowed the opportunity to be welcomed into that space if they don't feel like they so yeah.
Alex, I think you said, or was it Ryan? One of you guys said that you didn't realize, and we're going to be wrapping it up, but you didn't realize that you wasn't using your privilege prior. Can you share that with everyone?
Yeah, I think actually that was a really good tie-in. I was going to say, I kind of wanted to give a perspective on what that gal said I'm not sure if it was on Facebook or anything, or that comment that she was talking about. For me, what I've realized a lot recently is the pain that Black people are feeling is a lot tied up in the guilt that those who are recognizing the things that the white community have done to the Black community in America for a long time. There is this healing that needs to come together from those two sides, where the guilt and the pain, both of that comes to a healing point in the middle. But if you don't even recognize the guilt of what our forefathers did to Black people, then it's hard to even recognize that there would be pain, you know, if you don't even recognize that guilt. And it's so easy in the white culture. I mean, growing up in an evangelical homeschool community, this wasn't even on my radar until my teen years, you know. And when we did learn about Black people suffering in America, it was taught in history class. It is history, you know, it's very much thought of that. And it was something that we went over for a couple weeks in our classroom full of white kids. And then we were on to the next subject, something that's done, something that we're past. And so it's really hard. You have to really force yourself to break out of that. And I think, you know, being out of the protest a couple weeks ago and standing there in front of the jail with all these different people of color, just seeing their pain, I started to get a really, really clear image. And every day I've felt that more and more. And so it's coming to this point where you stop ignoring all the pain that's around you and start recognizing your privilege and using that to start giving those people a voice.
And that's what empathy is. Just take a moment to step in somebody else's shoes and understand, okay.
Absolutely.
I've never been there. It never happened to me, but I can feel it. I can feel your pain, you know? Yeah. Do anybody else want to share anything?
I do have a protest coming up on June 20th, and it will be at Elk Grove Park. And then you'll get more details there. We will be marching. So we don't want to give up our ending location, but there will be a protest on the 20th of June at 4 p.m.
Okay. Where are you guys going to meet at? Do you guys have all that information?
Yeah, Elk Grove Park at the pond. And then I can also, if you follow me on social media, I also will get the poster out for
I'm
that.
gonna add you, Wesley. I'm
Okay.
gonna add you.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your IG? What's your social media?
It is WESSUHLEE. Really weird. I tried to hide my Instagram from my mom when I was a kid, so that was what that was.
Is that Wesley? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys. So listen, I want you guys to say one word. Just think about one word. What do you guys want to end this with? What do you guys want other people to get from this conversation? How can white America stand up and use their privilege in this fight against racism? What would you say? And I want to say this too. I know we do have some amazing officers. I know a few of them. Okay. I'm my godmother was a LAPD detective. My godfather was a an officer as well. My mom's sister Cynthia, she was a sheriff. So a lot of people think that I don't understand that life, but I do. I also was a sheriff explorer, so I do have respect for officers. The system is messed up, and they will tell you themselves it's messed up. So I don't want people to think that we're out here just against police officers. We're against the bad ones, and we're against the messed up system. And we need change. Okay, that's why we're having these conversations. So I just want to make that clear, because I know people are gonna get on my little snap and my little messenger, and they're gonna start making comments.
Just take that
Listen.
one thing from the show. Just take that one thing from the show.
You know, I'm like, it's no. We're against the system, and the system needs to be torn all the way down, burn that mess up, and let's rebuild it the right way.
Right.
Pretty much. But I'm gonna let you guys start. Anybody can say it. I'm not gonna call them names. So what do you guys want to leave our audience with?
Relearn, just because there's a lot of things people don't know, so they think in their old way of thinking, but we just need to relearn. Police need to relearn. Our community people need to relearn what's going on, and just to educate themselves.
Yes.
I'd like
yes.
to touch on that. I think especially like as a white dude, like what you have learned too, like I remember it being taught by my peers in school in upstate New York that like Robert E. Lee wasn't a racist, and like so it's like relearn and don't assume everything that you've learned was true. Might have been lied to. I took me going to college to realize how much was just from the ground up lied to me. So listen and educate yourself. Read, I mean, you stole my words, Gigi, honestly.
Relearn.
Relearn.
Yeah. I think that's key. And I think that you said that earlier too, Ryan. Like, we have to start educating ourselves. We have to start looking into some stuff and really doing some research and understanding the true history, understanding what's really happening. Alex, I know that you said that every day you're going and you're researching and your list is getting longer and longer. We need to start doing that. And not just white people, but Black people too. We need to start understanding that this is not just a one case incident. This has been going on for years. So I commend all of you guys. Wesley, what do you want to leave us with?
Accomplice. I think that it's not enough to be an ally. You have to be an accomplice. You have to be willing to get down, get dirty, and help us, break it down, because we're stronger in numbers. And yeah.
Now I'm Sonia Lewis. She shared that with us. And she was talking about the difference between the two. So let's end it with that, Wesley. Yeah. What's the difference between an ally and that?
An ally, they will sign petitions you throw at them. They will donate money. They will be out there. They'll help you protest. come, help spread awareness, but an accomplice will help to protect Black people, will be willing to put themselves in harm's way to help, and recognize their privileges and use those privileges to give Black people some access that they may not be able to have because of their skin color. So really getting down and dirty and willing to help, and not just for the time being.
It was a powerful picture that I saw on Instagram, and it was a Black guy, and the officers was over him, and this white woman came and used her body as a shield, and she just got on top of him. And so I think that kind of explains what's the difference is. Are you willing to shield me? Are you willing to protect me? Are you willing to cover me? And Ryan, I know that you're willing to do that for Tasia. We need the same thing. We need the same thing for just human beings, period. Are you willing to do? Are you willing to stand guard? Are you willing to protect? Another picture that I know I said we're about to end, but did you guys see that picture of that white officer, and he was alone? Did you guys see that? His officers kind of separated from him, and he was in the area where they was rioting, and they was mad, and he was by himself. And as a human, these I think it was Black and Puerto Rican and some others. It was a few Black guys and a Puerto Rican guy. They went and they shielded this officer. They shield the officer, and their comment was, "We didn't think twice, because at the end of the day, he was a human." He was a human. So they protected this officer from the hurt, and I would say hurt. I want the hurt protesters that didn't know any other way but to scream and yell and try to get their voice heard. They protected him and they shielded him. And so I think as humans, right, we need to be doing that for each other. Stop making excuses for what the officers are doing. Stop making excuses. I hear this all the time. Well, Black people kill Black people. No, I hear this stuff all the time. Stop making excuses and do what's right. And what's right is standing up for the cause. Black lives do matter. And by us saying Black lives matter does not mean other lives don't. We know other lives matter. We just want you guys to realize that Black lives matter too. So that's the end of this conversation. I would love for you guys to come back on. Hopefully I'll see you guys on the 20th. Hopefully you guys can come on down from Sacramento to Elk Grove and help in the cause, because again, we need to stand together. It's not just about Sacramento. It's not just about Elk Grove, but it's about making a difference in the world. So let's stand together. Okay. Until next time. Bye, you all. You guys can still on.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.